Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. Hope you're having a good week. I've seen a couple of articles online, and I think a couple of people have made videos saying that the Anthony Joshua Dillian Whyte rematch has been finalised. It's been signed by Whyte. I don't know whether this is true because, as I've said in previous videos, I've got to the point where I'm saying, wake me up when we get there. I'm really beyond caring about the politics and the negotiations. I want the heavyweights to fight. This is not an untalented heavyweight era. There's talent there, but they're not fighting enough. They're not fighting each other enough. And the last man standing should be the man who's cleaned out the division, not who's just beaten 2 or 3 of the top 10. But anyway, apart from that, I thought it was interesting because when they said that Whyte might not go for the rematch, I got to thinking, well, who is Joshua going to fight instead of Whyte? Because although I've got a lot of respect for both Joshua and Dillian Whyte in that they have ducked absolutely no one, nevertheless, I think it's fair to say that certainly in the case of Whyte, his punch resistance looks extremely diminished, and I don't think he's got that long left in the game, so he wants to sort of maximise whatever time he's got left and make a bit of money, So people say that Joshua's not got a great chin, but it seems to me that Whyte is the one with real vulnerabilities. And from Joshua's point of view, I think that's an ideal matchup because they're old rivals, both British. You can set it from that angle. Whyte talks a lot. Genuine tough guy, but he'll sell a fight with just his personality. He didn't do much talking in the build-up to the Fury fight, and I think that was to his mental detriment. Actually, I think if he'd got in Fury's face and started throwing insults around and really challenged Fury, he might have had more of a mental edge and been more switched on during the fight. But against Joshua, I can see him, really giving it large verbally during the build-up, and I think that's an important aspect of Whyte's game. But I just think from AJ's point of view, he needs someone who he can score a spectacular knockout over. Someone who's a recognisable name, someone where there is a bit of bad blood because I don't think they like each other much. And if you take Whyte out of the equation, I was thinking, who are you going to put in Whyte's place? Because when you look at Joshua, I mean, his confidence is around the ankles. Very, very low on confidence. And has been since the first Andy Ruiz fight. I mean, he was a killer before then. He was going in there and smashing everyone up when he was undefeated. Then he had, Ruiz on the floor. He went after Ruiz. Then Ruiz got up and 10, 15 seconds later, he's bouncing Joshua on the canvas like a basketball. And from then on, although Joshua did win the rematch, where Ruiz came in appalling condition, Ruiz, I mean, what was he, 90.5 stone or something? Dreadful. Talk about, throwing your title away for the sake of a few pizzas. I mean, that's what the guy did. And then he fought. Who was it now? I mean, Povetkin was in the mix, wasn't he? And Bulgarian fella whose name my mind's gone blank. You see, when you get to a certain age, your mind goes blank. Kubrat Pulev. He fought them and they knocked them out. He had a few problems though, and in those fights. Then he fights Usyk, goes 24 rounds, but he's still the ghosts of that knockout of now that he knew that what could theoretically happen to him, those ghosts were in his head, those demons, and he wasn't. He was never the same. And okay, you can go 24 rounds with Alexander Usyk. I know Joshua's bigger than Usyk, but Usyk ain't small, and he's damn good. So going 24 rounds is it's not something to be sneezed at. It's quite an achievement. And if he had a certain perspective, a certain mindset, if he wasn't intent on proving ultimately, right now I've got to prove that I'm number one. Again, I've got to regain what I had but lost. Up here as well as the belts. If he didn't have that mentality, and he had a mentality of I've been 24 rounds with Usyk, I can learn from that. If that was his attitude, well, he wouldn't have had that, meltdown in the ring after the second fight, and he would probably be in a far better place mentally, emotionally. He'd have more control over his emotions, over his mentality, if he said, okay, this is the long game. And I know he's 32, 33 now, Joshua, whatever he is. He's got a few years left in the game. You know, he's a heavyweight. They mature later and, you know, last longer. And he's still got a big punch. And, you know, his attitude should be, I'm going to take someone on. I'm going to show what I've been working on with Derek James and let other people say things and the public say things. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And quietly, and eventually it will come to fruition and people, then I'll win the public over later. But Joshua was in that mindset certainly after losing both the Usyk fights, where he was thinking, you know, I've lost it all, it's all gone. You know, and he was used to the frustration of the man and, you know, that ridiculous meltdown he had after the second fight. I mean, it was embarrassing. And that was probably his lowest ebb. That was probably lower than when he got knocked out by Ruiz. But he needs someone to look good against, definitely. And if you take White out of the equation, who's he got? Who's he going to sort of rebuild his brand with? Well, I mean, if you look down the top 10, 15, there aren't really that many names. I mean, I suppose he could go for, you know, the 87-year-old Luis Ortiz, who's still got a bit of a name, and knock him out. But I mean, you know, I'd make Joshua a favourite in that fight. Ortiz, is way beyond his best. He's over the hill. But he's still got some skills. You know, he can still give Joshua a few rounds. Apart from that, who else is there? I mean, Otto Wallin, that wouldn't sell. Bacoli, based in Britain, isn't he? So maybe, I don't know. Bacoli was after White, wasn't he? But that didn't happen. F.A. Jagba, I mean, Makhmadov. I'm trying to think of Kosabwitsky. I mean, these are people who you can't sell fights with. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if he was to face those guys, I'm absolutely fine with the fights. But no doubt DAZN, who are paying Joshua an awful lot of money, are going to want names. And when it comes to reputable names that are recognisable, names where they can make a few quid for a change, because DAZN are losing money hand over fist. Certainly were until recently. I think they probably still are. What's going to happen? I mean, who can you put him in with to build his confidence up? I mean, if not White. Yeah, I don't really see much option. So I think probably Eddie Hearn, DAZN, and even Joshua are heaving a sigh of relief if this is true, and that Dillian Whyte has signed for that rematch, because a knockout win, which is perfectly within Joshua's capability, would give him a bit more confidence, improve his stock in the public, with the public more. Maybe he won't get back to when he was unbeaten, of course not. But people will say, oh yeah, it might rekindle some interest in Anthony Joshua and make people think, oh, he's not finished after all. He's just knocked out Dillian, especially the casuals who don't realise Dillian's on the downside. You know, so I think this is a good development in terms of the fight for Dillian. As I say, I think his punch resistance is in shreds. But if he knocked out Joshua, that could get him a title shot. He's never fought Usyk. You know, what about this 4-man tournament? You know, could he elbow his way into that? I don't know. Maybe not. Depends what the Saudis think about White as a name. Yeah. So anyway, those are my thoughts on this little development. Leave your comments below as always, and thanks for your time. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Please do that. Hit the subscribe button. I'll appreciate that a great deal, and hit the like button as well. And yeah. Thanks. I will speak to you soon. I'll read your comments and answer. And bye for now.